I am very excited to have this conversation with Peter Kosak from GM. There's a lot of things happening in transportation. I'm going to start with a quick video, and we'll be back in just 2 minutes.
For over 100 years, automotive has changed landscapes and improved lifestyles. And today, we are entering into a whole new era of unprecedented change.
Mobility is evolving, and when we look at the future of urban mobility, we see that shared economy is here to stay.
This future is marked by access and options. Fueled by technology, consumers will be able to get what they want, when they want it, and keep it as long as they want to have it.
The vision for Maven is to be your personal gateway to a variety of on-demand mobility solutions.
It needs to be seamless, it needs to be easy, it needs to come naturally. You download the app, you reserve the car, and you get on the road.
Today, we all live our lives through our phones, which is why we designed Maven to do everything from unlocking the doors to making your shared vehicle feel more personal, all through the phone.
This extension into mobility services has led us to take stock of our capabilities. For 20 years, OnStar has been a way for consumers to add value to their ownership experience.
We have talked to customers over 1 billion times when they push that blue button, and we intend to bring that personal touch and experience to our Maven customers as well.
What essentially is a startup inside General Motors has been a magnet for drawing talent from inside the company and outside, from places like Zipcar, Google, and Sidecar. And the creativity is limitless. This team is focused on changing the world.
Maven isn't just about the car or getting there. It's about creating the moments and experiences that really matter.
We would like to give our customers freedom to explore restaurants, to have a date night, to go to the art gallery, and actually leave the city.
This is the most exciting time ever in the automobile industry.
With car sharing, on-demand ride sharing, and moving into ultimately autonomous cars being delivered to your door. I do believe that there is a future out there where my 8-year-old will never learn how to drive.
In my nearly 30 years at General Motors, I have never seen a period of greater change and possibility.
Cool. Come on out, Peter. So just starting with a GM executive saying, I can imagine a world where my 18-year-old doesn't learn how to drive, that's
pretty significant.
That's really, really, really crazy. Yeah. Peter and I first met at Verge last year, and had a great conversation there, but I have to say you guys have been very, very busy.
Since then, yeah.
Very, very busy. So why don't you talk about what you guys have been up to?
So really there have been 4 major developments since last fall. The first of them is we launched Maven, which is this new brand, which is really significant for a car company. You know, it's not something we do often. In fact, I guess the best example I can think of that's similar to it was OnStar in the mid-1990s, which also didn't fit with any of our existing nameplate brands. It was all about connectivity, and it was pioneering at the time, and it really needed its own, you know, its own space. And so we picked Maven because literally, a Maven is someone who's an expert or a connoisseur, someone who has a variety of choices available and the ability to make really good choices. And, you know, as we said in the video just then, that's really what this is all about. It's around options and access to those options. So
is the sidecar technology, is that embedded, or do you pull some of that?
Yeah, we actually, for Maven so far, it's vehicle sharing, and we've actually developed the app ourselves and the back end, including a reservation system and a billing system and analytics to match supply and demand and that kind of thing. So, we really felt that we needed to have a face for this, a personality for the brand, and that gives us a lot of footing to continue to drive innovation and have people understand really what we're going after. The second thing that we've done is we've launched in Ann Arbor. We actually have city vehicle sharing in Ann Arbor. We started it in January just with students and faculty at the University of Michigan. And actually tonight in Ann Arbor, we're rolling it out to the rest of the city. And Ann Arbor is a great location for that. It's a teaching hospital in the university and lots of millennials and a great, vibrant downtown area. About 100,000, licensed drivers. And we're going to use Ann Arbor as a test bed. We're going to continually do kind of the first of what's next there, whether it's a connectivity enabler or a particular feature that we have and all. So that was the second thing. Thirdly, we made a very significant investment in Lyft and have a very deep partnership with them now. In that case, we both shared a very specific vision for the future around autonomy, which is where we started. And we each bring complementary capabilities. I mean, we, are strong in autonomous vehicle development, all of the technology for that, and, are strong in electrified vehicles and embedded connectivity, which enables you to run networks. And they've been innovating in the ride-sharing space for, some time now with on-demand taxis and have been growing. So.
Let's do a quick show of hands. How many people here have ever used Uber or Lyft? Well, okay.
So I counted 3.
It's really significant. We were at dinner last night and really stupidly used a traditional limousine service to get home, which took an extra 40 minutes. And we had on our apps an Uber right there, but we'd already called, it was one of these things.
I didn't stay here last night. I rode over in a Lyft and took one from,
So why, so 500 million in Lyft? That's pretty significant. Why Lyft versus Uber?
And that really, the 500 million really helps them continue to grow and innovate. That's, working. It could have been others. It's not necessarily a knock on any other ride-sharing company, in the U.S. or globally. I think, as I mentioned, it's all about sharing a vision. This is true in anything. You have to share a very strong, compelling vision that you think is going to be disruptive. And then, you really have to have a meeting of the minds. And I think that happened in this case. I think the senior-most leadership of GM met with the co-founders and others at Lyft. And when you have that kind of a synergy and that kind of a promise, you act on it. So that's what we did, very quickly.
Well, I will say, I applaud your choice. They are way less tech bro-y.
Yeah.
The persona of the brand is a nice match for you guys.
The thing that's interesting about them too is, we've had a couple of workshops already since the announcement was made, sort of in secret around autonomous and I was going to mention the fourth of the developments is we have a team now dedicated to autonomous, and that's significant because to this point it's been mostly around the technology development, fusion of sensors and cameras and AI and all of that, but now we're getting to the serious stage of really looking at business models and what are the first best applications and what does a deployment roadmap look like and all of that. So to that end, we've had a couple of workshops with Lyft leadership to work through what the user experience is like, and it's very interesting to see, creative designers and engineers from General Motors, an 100-year-old company, come together with the leaders of Lyft, and you get, you get a different kind of catalyst, and you get a very different kind of conversation than they would have inside their four walls or that we would have inside our four walls. It's a very kind of a volatile mix, and I think it's sort of a little microcosm of disruption, generally.
Well, we'll come back to autonomous because that's a fascinating conversation to have. But at Verge we talk a lot about Internet of Things, sharing economy. Can you help this audience, which is varyingly degrees less technical, to understand how those things might shape the future of transportation?
I think that there's an intersection of several things occurring right now, and I think all of it is being driven, or a major enabler is connectivity. And we saw that 20 years ago, and for the ownership experience, pioneered OnStar, and it's had a huge impact overall. But I have to say right now that connectivity is the ether that everything is in, and it's driven by smartphones. Saw Zephyr in the video talk about the smartphone as the personal computer in your pocket and how it's so dramatically impacted everything, and it's pervasive now. So fusing personal devices and embedded connectivity in the vehicle in different form factors of the vehicle and technologies like electrification and autonomous, that's a flashpoint for a very, very different future overall. And so I think it's sort of these streams crossing at this point in time where on the demand side you have changing attitudes, and on the supply side you have the enablers to actually stand up these systems. And I think that really is the flashpoint for things to move quickly.
There was a session yesterday where somebody brought up, I think Rob Bernard from Microsoft, that in San Francisco, looking for parking is one of the biggest carbon problems that they have.
Big pain point.
So they have an IoT system in the parking meters that connects to your phone and helps you figure out where the next parking space is.
Yeah, I think that's a really important insight, because these are end-to-end solutions where we're developing journey maps. And if, to go back to, we had talked at Verge about the project in Manhattan with Stonehenge and Icon Parking. That wasn't just a fleet of vehicles in the garage at the Ritz Plaza near Times Square that people could access with an app. That was a three-way partnership. And the third of the three partners was Icon Parking. They have about 200 all-valet parking garages in Manhattan. And a part of that offering was you can park anywhere in Manhattan with one of these vehicles, and they accept them and without having to pull a ticket or give a credit card. And because parking is a huge pain point. And so that was a complete
Until we get to
package.
autonomous vehicles.
Yeah, right. And again, they're both, from a connectivity standpoint and being able to find available parking and all, but then also practically speaking, the idea that you can park nose to tail and door to door and have almost like a Pez dispenser for vehicles that, next one up, and have charging,
cool.
fields and these kinds of things. It's a very different future.
So a part of that future is electrification. Let's talk about the Bolt. And if you don't know, GM really kind of won CES this year. CES is a big consumer electronics show where they brought out the Volt. And I mean, all the press was talking about it. And the main storyline was Detroit beat Silicon Valley because it's going to be the first, affordable with electric car with a 200-mile range. So how did you guys do that? How did you beat Silicon Valley?
And I think that things build on other things. And when we did the Volt for 2010, which was at that time, I was right in the middle of it, a moonshot, and it was November 10th, 2010. That's when we're going to launch. Which part of that don't you understand? If you can't sign up, we'll get someone else who will do it. It was that, and that's really how I think big programs like that are impactful actually happen. You set a date, and then you really hammer away to get it done. Even the learning for that program was that range extended electric vehicles were right for that time, in many ways are right even for this time, where range anxiety is a problem. Existence of charging infrastructure in workplaces is a problem, the amount of it. And that's really a prerequisite for a broad adoption. And so the Volt, addressed that. The Bolt now is, 200 miles or 320 kilometers electric range, and that's really getting into a very usable territory now where you can do the majority of your trips with that. And it's got a great form factor. It's super small on the outside, and it's super roomy on the inside, and it's a kind of a monocab design, and you sit a little bit higher, which is great for, more urban environments and that kind of thing.
I'm just annoyed that I couldn't test drive it here.
Yeah.
I did sit in it.
We'll work out a test drive for you.
That'd be great. That gets to a great point that came up yesterday from Nigel Topping. He talked about this Goldman Sachs report, and Bloomberg just came out with a report that, I'll just cut to the chase, that if you extrapolate the growth of that market, by 2040, it'll be 100% penetration of EVs. What is your view on that?
Well, I guess whether you're talking about autonomous or really broad acceptance and use of electric vehicles, all of these things are inevitable and are going to be pervasive. And so whether it's that claim is correct, or whether it's a bit slower than that, or even a bit faster than that, to me, from where I'm coming from and from what I'm working on, is pretty much immaterial. It's an inevitable future, and we've got to get ready for it as quickly as possible. And that's why we're focusing on autonomy in such a concerted way. And the same goes for electrification. We better get after it because it's coming. But it's a multifaceted problem to be solved. And it's not just charging infrastructure or, dollars per kilowatt hour in batteries or, energy density and performance. There are also human side adoption factors as well, familiarity with the technology, beating range anxiety.
So how is Maven how are you guys helping drive that adoption
Well,
curve?
it's a really good question. The way I see our group focusing on shared use is that we are creating the systems into which you will deploy things like autonomous or real, battery electric vehicles in a way that pencils first, even financially. If you think about an EV deployment in a city, it's a perfect application. Right. It's lower speeds and more stop and go and shorter distances. As long as you've got the charging infrastructure there, one vehicle doing the work of many gets used up faster, shorter life cycle.
So I'll be able to get a Bolt if at some point when I do Maven, and will you have a solar charging station there?
Yeah. Well, again, that's where you sort of get back to partnerships. And that's what's so interesting about this time to me. No one company or no one industry has the suite of assets necessary to attack immediately the space. It requires partnerships.
I am quite sure there are some solar providers here that you could partner with. Yeah. I have one more question, but I want to go to sidebar over to Lauren. Do we have questions from online?
We do. People are curious about the breakdown of focusing mobility on suburban areas versus city center areas. So are you guys working directly with cities, or how do you think about all that?
Yeah, well, I mean, really, the suburban-urban challenge is one of the biggest. You go to any environment, and it's commuter pooling. I mean, transportation infrastructures are sized for morning and evening commutes, and not sized well because congestion, whether it's traffic or parking, is so horrible. So, working on mobility solutions that are, not just urban, but also suburban, and how people are able to live outside cities and get into cities in a very efficient way. So things like, dynamic shuttles and peer-to-peer pooling and these kinds of things are very big opportunities. Another that I would mention, and this may seem as like kind of a flyer, one of the things we're talking about right now is a business-to-consumer offering like Maven exists today, tonight, next week in Ann Arbor. But the opportunity to lay a peer-to-peer element on top of that, where we've got probably 20 million vehicles on the road today that have embedded connectivity that could yield the same kind of smartphone access, keyless user experience, can be laid on top of a business-to-consumer offering. And that increases the size of the fleet without increasing the carrying cost. You cover more area, and you provide, again, more access and options. That addresses, in some cases, maybe underserved areas that are more challenging from a business-to-consumer standpoint. So there are a lot of solutions.
I'm sure you get this question all the time, but there's this phrase that people overestimate what's going to happen in 2 years and underestimate what's going to happen in 10 years. When do we see autonomous vehicles on the road?
I believe that too. Well, I think that autonomous isn't an event, it's a roadmap. Right. And so before the end of this year, we'll have a small fleet of autonomous Chevy Volts driving around our Warren Tech Center campus in Michigan, which is a great environment for us because, it's got a very heavy concentration of connected vehicles, and it's this iconic site. It was done by Aero Saarinen. It's mid-century architecture. It's really cool, and it's got terrible parking problems, and it's got construction, and it's got all the makings of a tough environment from a mobility standpoint. And so they'll be running before the end of this year. So that's an example. We'll have them running, but I think that you'll see them in deployments that capture the imagination of consumers and policymakers. And again, back to the comment about electrification, how quickly that'll be adopted. Right. Who knows? But these things will accelerate adoption for sure.
I have a whole lot of more questions we didn't even get to, but sadly we're out of time. It is a really fascinating time in transportation. It's great to see your leadership.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. My glasses.